Hello.
Hello, and welcome back again. I'm Candace.
And I'm Val.
And welcome to our Closing the Early Literacy Gap podcast.
This podcast is for anyone who has anything to do with small children or anyone working with those in the early stages of literacy learning or learning how to read.
Yes, parents, teachers, administration.
People who are training or coaching teachers in any way. Anyone.
This podcast is for anyone.
Okay, welcome to episode 12.
Yes.
Well, we're already on 12, and we're going to be talking all things fluency. So this is a podcast about early literacy. And so fluency is not as big in early literacy because it takes a while to get kids to fluency, but it's still a very important thing to talk about.
Very crucial, fundamental part of early literacy.
Exactly. It's our goal. Our goal is to get these kids to be able to read fluently. And some kids actually can read fluently at a really young age. But we want to get all kids to get to there.
Yes.
So let's talk about it.
Okay.
All right. First of all, what is fluency? I really like what Lindsey says in Reading About the Fray. I've referred to this book a lot in these podcasts, but that's because it's my latest read. And so it comes to me. But what she says on page 147 in this book is that fluency is the result of the mastery of other foundational skills. And I think this is a really good way to summarize it, right?
Yes.
Because if they've got their other skills mastered, their phonemic awareness, their phonics, their decoding, their sight words,
Mm-hmm.
we talked
Which we
about
just
in our
talked about
last
last episode. Yep.
Then they can read fluently. And but it's important that
you don't just look at one aspect.
Well, and we don't just go right to fluency, right?
Yeah, so gauge their reading.
Yes. Yeah. So Dr. Jan Hasbrouck,
mm-hmm.
who I just recently learned was one of the first to start this ORF thing. Now, ORF stands for Oral Reading Fluency, which is a 1-minute test that schools around the country, everywhere, give to kids to test their fluency.
Yes.
It's a 1-minute timing. They see how many words they can read in a minute and with what accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
So fluency has 3 parts, right? It has speed, accuracy, and prosody. So ORF tests accuracy and speed, which is also automaticity. But I loved what Dr. Jan Hasbrouck said. She said, with an ORF measure, we can take a student's temperature. And I love that analogy because when you go to the doctor, Candace, and the doctor takes your temperature, what are they doing that for?
They're trying to see how you're feeling. They're trying to figure out where you're at, right?
If you're healthy or not
healthy. So if you're healthy or not healthy, if you're good or not good, if whatever, right? So I when you said this to me, I thought it was really interestingly put because I'd never heard that before. And I like that she says it's just taking their temperature. It's just a gauge to see, okay, how well are you doing? And how can we fix it? Right?
Okay, but it doesn't really tell you.
No, it doesn't tell you what needs to be fixed.
What needs to be fixed or how to fix it. I mean, back in the old days when you had a fever, they would put you in an ice bath.
Ice bath, yeah.
And did that fix the fever?
No.
No, it didn't fix the fever. And I think some people do that with fluency.
Right. They're like, okay, we've just got to read and read and read.
We got to read faster. We got to practice going fast.
And that just causes problems. That just causes guessing and stress for children, right?
Yeah.
Because they know when they're being timed. They want to do well, right? Children innately just want to please. If they know, okay, they want me to go fast, I'm going to go fast. And that means that those kids who aren't already there are going to be guessing because they're not going to slow down and know the tools and use the tools that they have, right?
So really the ORF tests, the fluency tests, are just letting you know there's a problem or there's not a problem, or and you may have to do some more testing to find out exactly what the problem is. Just like when you have a fever, they got to find out where the infection is.
Yes.
Right? Yep. What's causing the fever? Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not obvious. And I think the same thing with fluency.
Yes. And so speaking of fluency and being able to come down and figure out where they need to do their work, there's 3 parts of fluency, main parts of fluency.
Okay.
Speed, okay, which means automatic. That's their automaticity. That is, what is looked for the most. Okay.
That's what people focus on a lot, is the speed.
Right. How
and
fast.
kids will be like, let's see how fast I can go.
Right. And then the second part, when you're focusing on speed, that's when kids are pushed way too hard. And that's when they start guessing. That's when they start feeling anxious. That's when they start second guessing themselves, making silly mistakes. On speed. Right. Yeah. So you can't just focus on speed, but that is a portion of fluency. The next part of fluency is accuracy. That's your ability to read, or the ratio of words read to errors made.
Yes. So have you ever had kids who can read a lot of words, but they make a ton of errors?
Right. Then their accuracy is poor, and so their fluency is poor. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Also, with a lot of accuracy errors, also interferes with their comprehension of what they're reading, which we're going to talk about later. The next part is prosody, which a lot of kids don't get until later on in their fluency journey.
Yeah.
But it's an important part that they do develop, especially in the later years.
Right. Because prosody is like expression.
Yes.
Right. Reading in a way that people want to listen to.
Not Bueller.
Or, I mean, even if you could read really fast. Let's see. Just gonna pick a page.
Oh, great page.
Oh. It's got Korean or something on there. Okay, we're not going to read that. Okay, right here. Print concepts relate to how printed text operates, starting from very basic concepts, print and hold meaning, and moving to sophisticated ones related to genre and text feature. The goal of instruction in print concepts is for children to use the knowledge they gain to navigate and create text. That was so fast.
That's so great for you. I have no idea what you said. Could you retell me what you read?
No, I have no idea.
Okay, great.
It had something to do with print concepts.
Oh. Good. I didn't even get that because I was just astounded at
those are the first 2 words. Print concepts.
Oh, perfect. Definitely don't know the last word you read. No? Cool.
Okay. Great. And I was a little bit stumbling too, because I was trying to go so fast.
Yeah.
So that's not good. Yes. But prosody would be, reading it so that you can understand it. I can understand it. I knew what it was doing.
Yes. You're doing with expression, you're making it interesting,
Right. And I think we mentioned in a previous episode that prosody is something you can't measure. And so it makes it hard for people who want to focus on it, because so much is like, how am I going to be getting better? But you know what I heard? I heard just this morning in a podcast.
What?
That there are some people working on a prosody test.
Ooh.
I don't know how it would work.
Well, I think, so for very beginning readers, and this just popped into my head too, very beginning readers, that we focus on, right? Early literacy, prosody for them would, I think, be able to start with, is there inflection on the last word of a question?
Right. Let's read this with a question mark.
Simple.
We do that in first grade a lot.
Super simple, right? Focusing on the punctuation mark and then reading it accordingly, not necessarily with the feeling, but being able to identify, a statement versus, a question.
I actually have a student that I've been working with recently, a little bit older student, and I've been working on him a little bit with prosody. Mm-hmm. And he has a really hard time distinguishing the difference between a question mark and an exclamation point and how to do it. Like he'll read one with he was really good at reading questions. And then I had him do one with an exclamation point, and he read it the same as a question. And so I said, okay. And so we fixed that. And then he read a question, and then he read it just like the exclamation point.
Okay.
So you do need to practice that with some kids and help them to know and understand when they're focused on reading, and like they might talk that way. Fine. They might be able to ask a question. Absolutely. No problem with this going up a little at the end. How are you today?
Right.
But
can I go to the bathroom?
But when they read it, their brain's doing so much work.
Right.
It's hard for them to do that.
Yeah. So let's talk about why fluency is important. Right.
Okay. Well, you can get your homework done faster.
Yes, which is a bonus for parents and children.
You're fast.
If you're fast, right? As long as you're fluently fast.
As long as you're fluently fast. That's true. That's true. Also, it's more interesting to listen to you read when you read fluently.
Yes. So other people will want to listen to you. Your parents will have a funner time listening. If your kid is more fluent, it's just, it makes it a lot easier.
It does make it a lot easier. Yeah. Okay. But ultimately, the purpose of fluency is to support comprehension, which is the whole purpose of reading, right? I mean, if you're not reading fluently, you're not comprehending what you're reading. And others around you aren't comprehending what you're reading because you're so focused on what the words are.
Right.
So until you get to that automaticity to the point where you can really read better with prosody, then the whole point of reading kind of goes out the window.
Right. And I think it's also important to note, and I think we've talked about this before, I'm pretty sure, but fluency in reading goes into every aspect of learning. It is all around you. So as soon as you can
reading
read,
goes into every aspect of learning.
Right.
Which is why reading's so important.
Right. And so, I mean, even math, right? Sometimes you're a really good math brain. Sometimes you're a really good reading brain. But even in math, you get to word problems. Right. And so it's just so important for fluency just to be able to keep up in other subjects and to be able to continue to grow and learn and not feel defeated. I also think that when kids become fluent, they also get self-gratification when they are reading well.
And that is so important.
Right. And it's a very intrinsic reward that self-motivation because they know they're good at it. They like it when people
spurs on desire to do better and more.
Right. Because, and children have an innate sense to want to please. Right. Yeah. And so when they can tell that whoever they're reading to is happy, right, or enjoying, they want to do it more.
And you know what? That leads us actually really well into how to help kids with fluency.
Yes.
Because the number one thing I would say in helping kids with fluency is making sure that they are reading something that challenges them, but it is decodable for them.
Right.
Because if you're giving them something that's too hard, then they're going to be a lot farther away from finding that self-gratification.
And wanting to do it.
And
that's when you're going to get their feet dug in and they're not going to want to do it. They're not going to want to participate.
Exactly.
It's too hard.
Exactly.
It's too much.
So if you're giving a student an ORF test, through whatever testing, Acadians, Dibbles, there's a bunch of other ones that people use, but they all have the same, pretty much have this 1 minute timing. You give a kid, this doesn't start until the middle of first grade.
Okay.
Officially.
Right.
I think we do some before that, but
right.
Those stories, you and I have both done lots of these ORF tests with first graders. Yes. And there's a lot of words in those stories that are not at the first grade level decoding.
No.
These stories are not decodable texts. They are, they're supposedly at a first grade level and they're simpler than the older ones, and some kids can read them great, but other kids struggle. So you give them one of those and then they struggle with it. And then the only way you try to help them is by taking the progress monitors from that same test. Progress monitors, most of those tests will create more stories that you can practice with the kids.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you shouldn't ever do progress monitors but progress monitors are supposed to be able for you to check their temperature after you work with them.
Right.
Like, okay, they do bad on that. You figure out what the problem is. You work with them on the problem, and then you can give them a progress monitor to give yourself another temperature read. But you shouldn't be teaching fluency by using those.
Right.
You should take them to texts that they can be successful on.
Yes.
So that they'll want to read it, so that they'll want to keep practicing, and they'll feel like, yes, I did it.
But at the same time, you don't want to give one that's too easy.
Right.
Now, with that being said, with early literacy, because you're focusing on decodable text for these early literacy kids, a lot of the text might not be the most interesting, fascinating thing.
That's true.
And it's not necessarily something that they will care about, right? A cat sitting on a mat is not the most exciting thing. However, there are ways to make simple text very interesting.
Like hop on pop.
Right? But let's go back for a minute and let's talk about that cat sitting on that mat. Okay. Right? Short A, very simple, very beginning, decodable reader, right? So I would help, work through the kids reading that. But I would be like, okay, this cat is sitting on a mat. That's weird. Why? Why would a cat want to sit on a mat?
Yeah.
Right? Let's get some background knowledge, right? I would ask kids, why is a cat sitting on a mat? Oh, you think he's tired? Why? What is he doing? Why is he tired? Oh, you think maybe he's just fat and lazy. Maybe that cat's fat.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe
a lot of them say the fat cat because that's all
because it's also there. But it's like you could make it interesting. I'd be like, okay, well, if I'm a fat cat and I'm sitting on a mat, do you think I'm going to want to move? And the kids would be like, probably not. And I'd be like, okay, I'm going to be the fat cat on the mat. And I would sit on the floor. I'd be like, okay, get me to move. Go ahead. And they just kind of look at you weird, like, what do you mean?
You're such a fun teacher.
And then I'd be like, no, come on, push me. Get me off this mat. I'm a fat cat, And they would come and I would pick a kid who would participate, and they would try and push and be like, oh, is that all you got? Come on, I'm a fat cat. You can't move me. Jeez. And just make it a little bit more entertaining for them.
Yeah.
So then they want to continue to read, right? And I think that's a really important thing, that even if the text is super boring, find some way to make it
more interesting. And then once they read a text the first time, have them reread it. And reread it again and again. They will find, and you will find, that they improve a lot. And that is also self-gratifying.
Yeah.
If they read it the first time and it's like struggle, and then you say, okay, read it again, and they might not want to.
Yeah.
But they read it again and they find they do better.
Yep.
And then they do better, and that builds that in and gives them the reps on the words, and it gives them the feel of what it feels like themselves to read more fluently.
Yep. And there's a couple ways that you can measure that too. With different kids, visual kids, I would do a star where they ended the first time.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then see if they can just get past the star. Right? Not necessarily, and I would say, Kate, but for every word you got wrong, we have to go backwards. So did you really get past that star? Right.
But another thing that I've had I've heard people do is they underline with one color the first time they read it all the words that they missed.
Oh, yes.
Or they need help
I do that.
And then you go back with a different color the next time so they can see how much better they've done and which words they now know that they didn't know the first time.
Yeah.
That's really fun for them, and it's exciting. So that's a great way in the early years to work on fluency.
Yes.
And the rereadings. But you will also have kids who continue to struggle with fluency as they get older, and maybe they do okay with decoding, but they struggle with somehow fluency. So there's lots of different ways that you can do as they get older and as they do more. One of my favorite is performing, having them do a reader's theater or a play where they have to learn their lines really well and do them in a way that will be more interesting.
Right. With prosody.
With prosody, that's a really good way. Also, I love this book. The Megabook of Fluency has lots of really great ideas. This is by Tim Rasinski and Melissa Smith. And there's lots. So we're going to do an activity from this.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Are you ready?
Okay, yes.
For the camera.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so for those of you who are just listening, what Belle is doing right now is she has an envelope. And in that envelope, you have two sets of phrases.
2 sets of things. First of all, I have some phrases.
Okay.
And I got this out of this book. I copied it and then did this, and I've used these with students, and they love this.
So different phrases are just simple sentences.
I'm gonna lay these little strips in front of you.
Okay.
And these strips are gonna tell you how to read the sentence.
Okay. So she just put the strips down upside down.
Yeah, upside down, so she can't see them.
I can't see them, and those are different emotions.
Okay, and now I have 6 different sentences on strips of paper.
Okay.
And she can't see what they say, but I'm going to have her pick one, like I've played them like cards.
Okay.
She's going to pick one randomly.
This one feels good.
Okay. So what does it say?
I can't find my keys.
Okay. So now you're going to turn over one of these little cards here, and it's going to tell you how to read it.
Okay. Excited.
But excited. The emotion that you feel when you read. Okay, now read it. Okay. Excited.
I can't find my keys.
That was really good.
Thank you.
Try another one.
Oh, okay. So now we're not excited anymore. Now I'm anxious. That's more of a realistic feeling. Yeah. I can't find my keys.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you. She's got good prosody. Okay. All right, let's do another one.
Okay. New sentence. Should I put these ones back or have different?
No, let's do different ones.
Okay,
so
got it.
Yeah,
okay.
Just so that we can see. Okay.
Right. New sentence. This one sounds good. Ooh, the ice cream spilled on my skirt.
Okay, flip one of the emotions over.
Confused. The ice cream spilled on my shirt.
That was a skirt.
Skirt? That wasn't very fluent. I made an error.
You didn't even look at it.
I didn't. I looked at you because I was confused. See?
Because you read it the first time and you memorized it.
I was confused.
Yeah.
See, I didn't even know if it was on my skirt or my shirt.
Okay,
I was confused.
Pick one more emotion to read that same one.
Scared.
Scared.
The ice cream spilled on my shirt. My mom's going to be so mad.
You said shirt again.
A skirt. I'm so confused.
No, it's okay. But you can see how you can say the same sentence in different ways and how much it changes the sentences. So I've used these with older kids that I tutor, and they love doing this.
That's so fun.
Isn't that fun?
Yes.
So that's a fun activity. And this book is just full of a lot of things. I had this other student who I was using. He was he was going into 6th grade.
Yes.
And he was like a speedy. He liked to do everything fast, but reading was hard for him. And so he was just really disfluent because he was trying to go super fast and he was guessing.
Right.
And so this has some poems in it. It has the first part of Casey at the Bat, if you're familiar with that poem. And he loves, this kid was a sports kid, and he loved the poem, and he practiced it, and he would read it for me, and he loved doing that. And then so much to the point that he was like, I want the whole poem. I don't want just this first 3 stanzas or whatever that was in this book. And so I went and found it, and then we worked on the whole poem, and he loved it. And so I think that, you know, if you're doing it, fun and exciting things, and something that will make them want to do it over and over again, like for a performance or something like that, it can really help them get better with that prosody and that thing. Okay. So one more thing we need to talk about really quick is hyperlexia.
Yes.
What's hyperlexia?
So hyperlexia is a child's ability to read very quickly, but with zero comprehension. And so if you are just measuring speed and accuracy, you won't catch these kids.
You won't really know that they can't comprehend.
Yep.
And so
and it doesn't really matter how fast you can read.
I kind of fall into that category. I learned how to read really easy.
Yeah.
And I can easily read stuff without paying attention to what I'm reading. Whereas other kids whose brains, they're reading for meaning, and it's really hard for them to do that. So my husband, I've mentioned he has dyslexia. And one time when we were dating, this is one of my favorite stories about like reading skill. Because reading is hard for him. Well, he can read fine. He can read pretty much anything. But he's slower. He's much slower than me. And I went to his house. We were dating. And I went to his house, and he was sitting on the couch reading a magazine. This is back in the days when you read like real magazines, not online. And I sat next to him. And I said, what are you reading? He's like, I have no idea what it was about. I still don't know what it was about. Okay. So he's like, I'm reading this thing. And so I sat next to him, and I read the page 3 times before he turned the page. And he had started it before I got there.
Yeah.
So that's how much faster I was at reading. I read it 3 times.
Okay.
And then afterwards, and he wanted to talk about it, and he got so much more out of it than I did.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't remember that in there. So as I mentioned earlier, fluency is great for getting your homework done faster or all this kind of stuff. But ultimately, that speed doesn't matter if you're not getting anything out of it.
Right.
So even though my husband's slower than me, he would get a lot more out of anything he reads than I would, because I tend to just want to get things done fast.
Right. Which is why when we mentioned getting homework done faster, we mentioned getting it done as fluently.
And making sure you comprehend. There's so many aspects. And that's the point.
Yep.
There's so many aspects that come in. We want our kids to be fluent, but fluency isn't everything.
Right.
And that's the important thing, especially speed isn't everything.
Yeah, speed isn't everything. So, fluency is important, but speed isn't everything.
Right. So that's it for talking about fluency. Our next episode is we're going to talk more about vocabulary and comprehension, which are the last 2 of the big 5.
Yep.
And we're going to go into that more. So join us for that, and we'll see you then.
All right. Have a good day.